أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, verily all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His aid, and we ask for His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil of our own selves and from the evil of our own actions. And whomsoever Allah guides, none can misguide. And whomsoever Allah leaves astray, none can guide back to the correct path. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We testify there is no deity worthy of our worship except for Allah, who is alone, with no partnership, never has and never will be another. And that Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, upon his family, upon his wives, and upon all those who follow him until the last day, is the last and the final prophet of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My embraced friends, family, brothers, and sisters alike. Thank you for joining us for the Monday halaqah again of the review and continuation of the book, The Halal, Permissible, and the Haram, Prohibited by Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi. We got into section 5 last week, divorce, and we will be continuing for a section between pages 202 and 206. Again, in the third chapter, the lawful and the prohibited in marriage and family life. So, staying on the topic of divorce that we have delved into last week, the author notes that divorce at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the advent of Islam, when the Quran was being revealed down to its people, that divorce was not a new or an unheard of concept. In fact, there are sections dedicated to the differences between the Jewish, the Christian, and even noting the Greek and Roman procedures for marriage and divorces. And for most of these, it was a means or had means of legal and secular recourse, meaning that it came that between a married couple, it would usually have the involvement of judges or the community, and especially in the case for property and inheritance, if that ever came to be. One thing too, and an interesting part here, is that one thing that the author mentioned as well, he did not go into the specific details or its source, but I was curious, so I decided to look into it, and I wanted to share that with anyone following along here. As the author writes, during the earlier period of Roman civilization, the religious marriage made no provision for divorce. And this is especially so because the pantheon of gods, I guess each would have their own means and ways of conducting it properly, as well as when Christianity was originally being introduced, I would imagine they would not, because of the persecution that existed until the time of Constantine, that would be prohibited. I'm getting that ruler correctly. You want to have the vision and then change all of his people over to Christianity at that time. But at the same time, the husband was given the absolute power over his wife, and for example, even under certain circumstances, it was lawful for him to kill her, i.e. his wife. As time passed, the religious law brought conformity with the civil law, which then permitted legal divorce and non-secular divorce. And looking into this, the Parlex Julia, or the law passed by the members of the Julian family, it's called also Julian. In this case, Augustus, or the first Roman Empire, the first Roman emperor of the Roman Empire, made adulterous or extramarital sex of a noble or respectable woman to be immoral and illegal, whereas beforehand it was not. It was something that was dealt in regarding the family. It didn't have any sort of legal repercussion whatsoever. And normally, the father of the woman or the husband would then punish the immoral act in any way that they would see fit. But after this, I'm going to butcher this. Next, Julia de Martindias Ordinivus is a law that in essence made adultery a crime and was then punishable by the legal system that was regulated. Even so, that a woman's father of somebody who was unmarried would be able and legally able to kill his daughter and the lover that committed this deed if they were caught in the act of sexual intercourse without being married. And the husband was, although not allowed to kill either party, he was to be treated kindly if he happened to do so. And there's also, to mention too, and of course, a ridiculous sort of circumstances in regards about how this is generally set up, because it has no moral backgrounds because of it, come from, I guess, trying to establish I guess, what is righteous or what is good. But this coming from a man creating the law for himself. This was only the time of his reign. And Quintius Celsius Metellus Macedonius was also a law requiring men to marry in order to produce children. So one inside of the Roman Empire was obligated to be married for the sake of bearing more children, more than likely, so that they could be used as war fodder. SubhanAllah. So it kind of shows a good example of really the basis in regards about where, especially in certain, we call them Western or Hellenistic cultures, where the basis or foundations of law or of liberty or freedom is based upon these sometimes really outlandish sort of concepts and ideals. But the author continues on in regards about the comparing and contrasting regarding divorce in Judaism. And Judaism improved the status of the wife, but it also broadened the scope in regards of divorce. The religious law requires that the husband divorces the wife if moral delinquency is proven against her, i.e., she has cheated on him, even though he may prefer to forgive her. So even if he would prefer to forgive her, it is still a requirement under Jewish law to divorce the wife. Likewise, he is required to divorce her if she does not bear him children through a period of 10 years of married life. And interestingly enough, as if it is a decision of the female, of the wife, as opposed to the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, Prophet Isa alayhi salam is reported that inside of the book of Matthew and the book of Mark regarding his dispute with and the questions that he was given, that he has stated, it was also said, and this is his being revealing at least, as we have the Injil over what we have left of here. Isa alayhi salam said, it was also said, whoever divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. This is the part of the Jewish law. But I tell you that whoever divorces his wife, except on the grounds of adultery, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a woman who has been divorced commits adultery. This is in Matthew 5, 31 to 32. And he said to them, whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. And if a woman divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. So in the case of pure spouses or divorcing for the sake of beyond being unchaste, this is normally not acceptable and allowed in the Jewish and the Christian tradition, like in Islam. Or regarding the Christian denominations as well, the New Testament Gospels do make the exception with regard to the prohibition of divorce in the case of adultery. Some Catholics, however, try to explain away even this exception by saying, i.e., the meaning here is not that adultery is an exception in the case of which divorce is permitted, because in Christian law there is no divorce. But that is, an altercation or a changing, because this was very possible back in the Old Testament, as well as what is mentioned by Isa alayhi salam. The phrase "except on the grounds of adultery" means that the marriage itself is annulled since its legality and correctness have been violated. Thus, while it is seemingly a marriage, in actuality it is adultery, and consequently, in such a case, it is permissible, or rather incumbent upon him to leave the wife. And the Protestant denominations permit divorce on the grounds of adultery, betrayal of the husband, and some of the other specified reasons, in addition to those mentioned in the text of the Gospels. However, some of these denominations altogether also prohibit the remarriage of a divorced man or woman. And it's interesting too that the past 40, if you will, even 50 years, even though there is that concept that half of marriages here in the United States do end up in divorce, the divorce rate has gone down ever since the 1970s. And one interesting point regarding that is that the rules, regulations, or what is considered to be on the grounds for divorce is and has opened up ever since the establishment of, at least for many states, of no-fault divorce, which was implemented by Ronald Reagan in 1969 in the state of California. And at that time or now, it is not required for both spouses to be present. There does not need to be the establishment of fault or proof or reports of cruelty or inhuman behavior for one another. If somebody wishes to get divorced with one another, it is then open for them in a secular stance. In regards about their religious pretense, that is more or less on them, how they deal regarding the church, the religious functions, and I guess more or less to defend themselves. However, in Islam, though, although the ability to divorce is open and is eligible for either party, whether it is a hula granted by the wife so that the mahr is returned back to the husband, or the husband grants the waiting period of 3 months after the menses, the passing menses, or the last menses of, or the next menses actually, of the woman, and then in waiting until the divorce is finalized. Now we have to, again, as I mentioned, no good marriage ever ends in a divorce. We do still have to reflect that in regards for Islam, that this is something that is permissible, and sometimes for the sake of personal means, or the sake of children, the sake of family, and for the sake of people's deens, there can always be the case where people do not get along. People are not able to reconcile their issues or their differences, or it is a means of harboring discontent as opposed to the means for a good, righteous household. So in Islam, although the grounds for divorce usually, especially for the woman's sake, but also for the man's sake, I don't think most men want to go through the process of getting married only to divorce. There has to be a grounds for a reason, and also there is the established means and methods for us to come to reconciliation with one another, as established by law in Surah Nisa. But with that, that finishes today's section. We will go ahead and close a little early today, and we will follow up in the following week. If you have any questions, concerns, or discussions you would like to have, please post them in the comments below, and we will respond to them. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Allahumma subhanahu wa bihamdi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.